everyone. Welcome to the RePHIL Studio. This is your weekly Bang Dream podcast, giving you the best up-to-date information about upcoming updates to the game and the franchise, as well as giving you an insight on experiences and stories shared by prominent community members in the game. This is your host, SB4, and let's refill to 99 and let's get the set ready and going. This episode, we have some really exciting special guests coming in, as well as some pretty interesting news. So before we begin, just want to let you all know, website and such are links in the description below. Follow the website to learn more about the studio, find ways to support us, and join the Unga Discord to talk with any of our special guests and possibly even share some feedback. All links are in the description, and we greatly appreciate your support as we continue on with Season 2. Out of the way, intro complete, let's get started with the Weekly News Corner. Okay, so a lot of news this week. Let's start off with Garupa Pico. The third season of Garupa Pico is finally out on the official Bang Dream YouTube channel. If you guys aren't familiar, Garupa Pico is a short anime series, about 3 minutes long per episode, where it sort of puts the Bang Dream characters in a chibi-sized form and puts them in some really fun, interesting, and sometimes a little bit crazy story plots. And it's a really fun ride. So if you haven't watched the series yet, it's a pretty long, but not too long of a binge. It's already in the third season of most likely 24 episodes. The third season is also going to feature RePHIL as well as Morfonica. So that's going to be really exciting to see all 7 bands all come together. And it's a really fun time just watching Garupa Pico, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. So again, all the episodes are on the official Bang Dream YouTube channel. As well, the opening for the third season of Garupa Pico, Pico Tarumono Fever, the song is in the ENdori game, as well as the full version is out as a single. So feel free to give it a listen. It's a really weird, funky opening, but yeah, definitely take a listen to that song. And yeah, that's also something to keep note of. Speaking of songs, Morfonica's single, as I mentioned in last week's podcast, is out. Harmony Day featuring the song, as well as Sonorous and Fateful Day. Now, Fateful Day is not a song in the game just yet, but most likely will be in the game in the future. So again, big congrats on Morfonica with another hit single. All the songs are really good, and they definitely deserve the love and appreciation. Morfonica has definitely worked very hard to get there, being a newer band, and definitely share your support if you can. Now, in terms of Morfonica is also getting in the spotlight quite a bit with their band story 2 being currently going on in the Japanese version of the game ENdori. So it is a mission live. It is Band Story 2, which is the first of their kind. We'll get to see a little bit more character development with Morfonica, so it's going to be really interesting to see, and I can't wait to see what's going on there. And yeah, we're going to expect it in the EN server or for the worldwide server sometime next year. So this is going to be a really, really exciting story. For our RePHIL fans, do not worry. Your Band Story 2 is coming up very soon. They've already confirmed that the RePHIL Band Story 2 will be released sometime in mid-December, early mid-December. So you don't have to wait too long, just a few more months until the final band will get their Band Story 2, and then we'll get a lot of really interesting developments there. So definitely look forward to that if you are a RePHIL fan. So a lot of great news coming out of the franchise as well as ENdori. Now, what about ENdori? Well, this is going to be a long story. So for those who don't know, the current event in the English version of the server is Welcome to Open School, which is a challenge live featuring Poppin' Party. It has some nice songs like Photograph, and yeah, overall it's a 6-day event, pretty standard, and not too bad. But casual fans may not notice or may not know that the events are actually kind of out of order. The next event is actually supposed to be one of us, which is the Afterglow Bandori 3 event. And Bandori 3 is a big deal, right? It is a, where the fans of the particular band really get to show their appreciation for the band, either through gacha or through tiering the event. And that event just got entirely skipped. Now, to give a bit of context as to what happened, I already talked about this in the last podcast, but the Have a Good Halloween event was supposed to only go for 6 days, but then they suddenly extended it to 12 days. Like when the event was just about to end, they were going to extend it to 12 days. Now, apparently the reasoning was that they didn't have enough resources, or they needed a bit more time to sort of, pump out some resources and get things done. So that's why they just did a last minute extension. All right, that's fair. But then they just completely skipped an event that a lot of people were looking forward to and a lot of people had planned in advance for. And the event is now skipped. They suddenly, out of nowhere, said that Welcome to Open School is the next event and didn't really make any explanation about it until there was some pressure from the fan base as to, what's going on. Why is this event skipped? And what happened here? So they only made really sort of a statement when that pressure came to them. So in the last episode, I already mentioned how I was worried that there might be some inner conflicts or some things within the Bushiroad company that could be problematic. And that's why there could be some issues that we don't see, but there are some really underlying problems within the organization. And this really seals the deal. And, what I just said last week, I think it is correct and very true. ENdori is in trouble. It is actually in trouble. So there's a lot of reasons why people are upset about this. One, the fact that, they did a poll, right? They did a survey in July or August, somewhere around that time, asking people whether or not they wanted shorter events. Based on the people that I've spoke with, of community members, most people generally did not want to see shorter events. They were perfectly content with the fact that JP events were basically a whole year ahead of EN events, which makes things easier to plan and, just gives yourself a bit of time. But now, again, that they're now shortening events based on presumably feedback from the community, which I still don't really buy the idea. I think it is a mix of, grabbing a vocal minority and a bit of their business intent. But it's one thing to just suddenly shorten the events. It's another thing to shorten the events and not be able to actually execute that, right? So the fact that they offered this opportunity to us to possibly shorten the events, and yet they just weren't prepared to do it, that shows a really high level of incompetence within the organization, where they're suddenly, just can't keep up. And it's only been a month. It's only been a month since they since they started shortening the events. It's crazy. It's only been a month, and they suddenly make these weird, wonky schedule changes without letting us know, and it's just really bad PR, and it's just not communicating and really understanding and working with the player base. This is just kind of basically saying, they betrayed the player base and they just want to do whatever they want, whatever it feels is like a business move. And, EN Bushiroad's already a little bit under fire. For instance, D4DJ, their events are basically completely out of order compared to the JP D4DJ. It's actually a huge mess on people trying to plan for tiering. And now this basically seals the nail of the coffin that ENdori's schedule is probably now going to go out of whack. They might actually just end up doing whatever they want. Maybe they'll follow D4DJ EN and just say, whatever event we feel like putting out next, we'll put it. So here's a statement that was provided from one of the PR individuals for Bushiroad EN. So this is actually someone who works for Bushiroad EN and is it's part of the organization and such. So basically, he's saying to recommend all tiers to take a step back because there was a schedule to rely on. We relied on the schedule for the longest time. At the same time, cannot say we have to stick with the JP schedule because there's never been something that was promised and owed. Okay. EN has its own schedule to run on, and things may shift around for other issues or reasons that we may not always be able to disclose. I understand it's frustrating, but it's unfortunately true. I can only say we try our best not to unless we have a really good reason or no other choice. So, it's true. Technically, ENdori never said to us, okay, if you want to play devil's advocate, they technically told us we're not necessarily have to be married to follow to the JP schedule all the time. And the fact that they're already doing it with D4DJ EN shows that Bushiroad and EN is very comfortable with actually just mixing the event orders. And they really seem like they actually don't mind doing that anymore. But, you know, at the same time, right, it's a matter of showing at least some sort of care to the fan base, or at least communicating at some point, right? The fact that technically, yeah, we weren't promised or owed, but like at least you could tell us that like a long time in advance that this was not necessarily going to be a thing. It just kind of feels like an excuse that they're hiding behind to sort of hide their underlying problems within the organization. And as well, like the fact that we presumably voted to have these events shorter, which again, I think it's a bit BS, but you know, they can now hide under that as well. It's like, oh, well, you told us we wanted shorter events, and oh yeah, I guess we accidentally bumped into some problems, ha ha ha. Like they're it's just not good. It's not a good look at all. They're just hiding, and they're really not fully addressing their issues and mistakes and you know how terrible everything's being handled, and just hiding it and just said, oh well, you know, that wasn't something we promised, and you know, it's just not a good look. It's not a good look. So what are some consequences to this? Again, I already said last podcast that now this sets a precedent. You never know when the event that you're tiering will suddenly double in length, because you know it suddenly happened for have a good Halloween, and you never know if your event is suddenly going to get doubled in length, and that could be really discouraging for tiers. Another thing is the fact that the event order could just suddenly be completely different. Like the fact that, like, you know, again, JP Dori technically never had a schedule to begin with, but you know, at the very least, that was already kind of like their expectation. Here, we kind of had a feeling. They egged us on that, you know, this was going to be a schedule. So there was people planning in advance and working on that. And now they're just suddenly saying, you know what, actually, we don't have a schedule. We don't know what we're doing. We don't have a plan. So, you know, we don't have a plan. So we still expect you to, you know, pay us for our incompetency. You know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. People are planning well in advance for maybe not even necessarily tiering, but for gacha. They maybe want the really specific card and they really want a gacha, and you know, maybe they wanted to prepare for it, and suddenly it came 2 weeks early. It's a mess. It's a huge mess. And again, for tiering, it really seemed like Bushido really wants to move away from planning in advance. It's just unfortunate that now tiers have this underlying uncertainty of they don't know when their event is actually going to happen now. We now have no idea when it's going to happen, and we don't know how long it's going to be either. Before, there was always some sort of like general plan and people could work around it, but now you never know. I feel so sorry for some of the tiers because, you know, they initially had the schedule assuming their event was going to be immediately a year after JP. And, you know, now with this sudden shift in schedule where, you know, events are shorter, but now they're also maybe mixing up the event order. Like, people have booked time off work to do this well in advance. And now Bushiroad just says, you know what? I don't care. We're just going to, you know, mess you up. And it really is just not a good look. And maybe they're doing this because they know that, okay, if we mess up some tier schedules or we mess up some people's schedules, then they have less time to prepare and maybe they'll end up spending more. But that's not the way to get more money from people. The way to get more money from people is have transparency in your business and be able to treat your fan base well, which clearly they're not doing, and they're not even listening to us either. It's not good. It's a terrible look for ENdori, and I think I've gone on for quite a bit, but if you guys aren't, hopefully, I don't know if you guys are convinced yet that I think it's just a terrible look. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if something like if one of us, the Afterglow Bandori 3, if that just doesn't happen next event either, maybe it gets delayed to next month. You never know. And then this could also affect other things like the Do-Re-Mi Hello Happy World collab as well. I think that's kind of on the chopping block as well. I feel like there's a chance that could be delayed as well, and things get pushed back and other events get moved, and it's just for tiers, this is a really big loss. The fact that you can't prepare in advance, and there's just so much uncertainty when doing it. It's not healthy. It's not financially stable to do that, and it just might not be worth it, right? It's just might not be worth it. So, but yeah, again, weekly rant corner now. Let me know, guys, in the comments below. What do you think about this sudden change in news about ENdori following these strats? So again, this might be news to some of you. For others, this could be something you've already heard of, and maybe you want to ramble on or rant as well. Let me know in the comments. I've shared my fair share of comments about this, and maybe this is an opinion that you guys have as well. But either way, weekly news corner is done. Let's hop over to the other side of the studio. Want to support the RePHIL studio? Check out our website. Links in the description below. Here you can learn more about the podcast as a whole, as well as complete our feedback form to give comments about how we can improve the project, as well as suggest any future special guests that you would like to see on the studio. You can also learn more about how you could support the podcast by joining the Filler Nation, either through a Twitch subscription or joining the YouTube membership below. Thanks again to the Filler Nation members for your constant support, and a reminder that all Filler Nation members can access the podcast live when they are recording in the Unga Academy Discord server. We hope to see you there. All right. Welcome back to the studio, and today I have the utmost pleasure and honor to have our special guest, Crowe, join us for the RePHIL studio today. As a brief intro, Crowe was able to get 3 podium titles, including, I believe, Noble Rose 2 getting 3rd place, ReZero getting 2nd place, and last but not least, most recently, this Warmth in My Heart getting 1st place. Crowe, again, thank you so much for taking the time to join the studio today. I definitely look forward to hearing a lot of interesting and fun experiences and stories from you.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So Crowe, maybe I don't know if there's anything else you would like to add to that intro that I gave you.
No, I think that was pretty good.
I think I did a pretty good job on my research. I think
Yeah,
I didn't
sometimes
want
I
to I
forget.
didn't want to accidentally like give you the wrong title or such. So you got to make sure everything's good there.
Mhm.
Crowe, when I bring special guests, one of the main things I do want to ask first is how they got into Bandori. So let me ask you that. How did you first hear about it and get into Bang Dream?
I guess I first heard about Starlight, review Starlight first,
Mm-hmm.
and I got into that first. And then, when you're watching like animes or like shows, you just like look up the cast. And I was just doing that and I was like, oh, a lot of them are in like this Bang Dream.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up checking that out. But I didn't actually get into it like until later. Like I downloaded the game. I played like 5 minutes of the tutorial. I mean, it took me a long time to like get through it, but I kind of like dropped it for a couple months and then got back into it a bit later.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how I got into that. But I don't know. when exactly I started like playing it regularly.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was just like something that just happened.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they get into Bandori for like usually from like other games. Review Starlight's
Hmm.
definitely a first, but that's really interesting to hear that you're able to, kind of stay in Bushiroad hell, I guess.
Oh yeah.
So, another thing I usually ask is, what is your favorite band and your favorite character? Now, the band I think is pretty obvious considering the events
Oh
you tiered
really? Is
for.
it?
I wonder. But what about maybe elaborate a little bit more about why specifically you love, Roselia and maybe also a particular character that you enjoy as well.
I guess actually when I first started the game, I actually really like Poppypa.
Hmm.
I just thought they were like really cute. And then I'm not really familiar with like well, I watch anime, but like it's not like something I do regularly. It's like I'll pick one up and then I'll just watch it. So I don't really know a lot of the cover songs or where they're from.
Hmm.
But then I realized, oh, a lot of these songs by Roselia, they're really good. Like the cover songs at the time.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. Oh wait. Yukina's voiced by Ai, who
Oh,
voices
yeah.
Claudine, who's like my favorite in Starlight. So
Oh.
I started like I guess or like like focusing on them more, Roselia as a whole.
Hmm.
And then I don't know, that's just what happened, I guess. It's the Seiyu effect, I think.
I'm personally a little bit guilty of the Seiyu effect as well.
Yeah.
Aiba Aina is definitely a treasure. So,
Yeah,
uh,
she's
but it's really interesting that you just kind of got in. You slowly kind of got sucked into Bang Dream first by like exposure of Revue Starlight, not only because getting into the game, but even getting into some bands and characters as well. So it's
Mhm.
quite interesting. So. Well, that's again, Crow. That's really good to hear. Now, um, you know, showing your love for a particular band or for a particular character. A lot of people have many different ways of doing it, and one of the ways to do it is, of course, through tiering. So, I don't know how you first got exposed to tiering in Bang Dream, or how did that first start? Maybe you did some competitive events and competed in Revue Starlight or in other games first, so that kind of sort of went into Bang Dream and came in there, or did you just how did you get into tiering?
I think generally I'm more of a casual player in terms of like competitiveness. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't really stress about that in other games. I think for Bang Dream it was more like I don't remember what the first event it was that I like tiered like top 1K or top 100,
Mm-hmm.
but I do remember like doing I think it was T1K for no, I think it was T100 for Summer Zelia, and
Mm-hmm.
then just like T100 like some events after that, like the band story 2 for Afterglow and Hello Happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, when it was Twin Stars, I was in pub court at the time just playing. And then people were asking me, am I going for T10? Oh, are you running? And stuff like that. And then I was just like, well, at the time I was like at work, I'm working. So I was just playing to like, like get ahead. So I don't have to play later because I was like busy. And then people just kept, I guess like support, they were like rooming with me and stuff. And then I guess that was the first event I T10'd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's how that started. But after that, I was like, "Oh, this is too much for me. I can't do this." And then yeah, and then I just kind of like stopped playing as often after that. I think I just got burned out.
Mm-hmm.
So there was like a couple events in between where I just kind of like T10K'd. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh and then after that it was just like I got invited by a friend to a server to help someone else. And then that was
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like a downward spiral into like tiering hell.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
yeah, because you meet more people who are trying to achieve like a high goal, and then you're like, oh, okay, I'll help them out, and then you end up like being like, oh, I can do that too. So it's like, oh, what did I get myself into?
For sure, for sure. It's really
Yeah.
interesting that you ended up actually just completely getting your first T10 title through pubs, right? Just pub court and just playing mostly by yourself, but with like a bunch of support from people from around the server. I know a lot of people when they think about tiering or trying to like get a top 10 through pub court, it seems quite difficult. But
Hmm.
overall, what was that experience like getting a top 10 title through pubcord?
I think it was pretty interesting because like you don't really know anyone, like, or at least for me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really like a social person who just talks to people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, it's just like I think I'm just too shy for that. I'm more of a lurker, so if people post room codes, I will ask to join. I will just, or I think at the time, yeah, yeah, I was just like asked to join and stuff. But because I couldn't like commit like a lot of time into it, like it was very like, oh, come and go. I did pub a lot, and I did pub a lot, yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
then, but there were other people trying to get T100 in pub core, so they were spending a lot of time there too.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up rooming with them a lot, and a lot of them were doing flameless P100, which I
Wow.
could never do. And I feel like if I remember correctly, Twin Stars was pretty lit.
I think so. Yeah, I
I
think it was a
think it
pretty lit
was.
event. Yeah.
Yeah, especially for like T100s too. So it's like, oh, I was playing with a lot of the same people at the time too. So it was like I met some really nice people there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
so
yeah. Again, so sorry to interrupt, but like again, it's just like
that's
really
okay.
interesting that you're able to like you said that oh you kind of worked together and it was really lit and it was a really competitive event and then just kind of casually walked into getting a T10. So you definitely spent quite a bit of time on that event though, regardless. So you did work pretty hard on that.
Yeah, I was like playing at work and
Oh.
then come home. Well, that was like, I don't know, for some reason it was like it was a holiday season, so
Hmm.
there wasn't as many work because we kind of
Hmm.
like do finish our work a couple weeks before the holidays, so we just
Hmm.
like stress out the weeks before.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's just how it is. And then so it was kind of like dead that week, so I had extra time. So
Yeah.
and then I come home and then just don't sleep.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
I don't not sleeping is definitely going to be something we'll talk about a little bit later.
Oh no.
Well, just a little, for those who are tuning in, definitely look forward to that. But again, for those who are listening and maybe thinking about like getting a really high title, but are not sure if we could get the support of tiering servers, or perhaps they want to kind of do it on their own through pubcord. Again, it's definitely something that's very doable. And it's it might be a little bit more difficult, but it's definitely doable depending on the event. And there's many people out there who have experiences. Getting very high titles in pubcord and
Mhm.
just doing it with the general public. But switching topics into tiering servers, um, you got into a tiering server. So how did that experience go? And what eventually convinced you to say, you know what, I want to be part of a tiering server and get a podium title? So how did that transition, like from first going into tiering servers to like oh, here I am, I got third place in an event.
Oh, okay. So, the first, I guess, cheering server that I joined was actually like a makeshift server.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it's it was during Noble Rose 1,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is a very competitive event, especially for T10 plus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was just playing pub court, I think, or just like pubs in general, just trying to get T100, and then I get a message one day
Mm-hmm.
from someone I met through Twin Stars actually. Uh, I don't know if you know her. Her name is Shin Yan.
Yeah, Shin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, Shin. So she DM'd me asking me if I wanted to join like this server to help support Fluffy, uh, who you may know as a big Roselia fan.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, so it was like to support Fluffy and then also um, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, sure. I don't know if I can like dedicate a lot of time to it, but I'll play when I can.
Hmm.
And then so that's how I got into the first server, but it wasn't really a tiering server, I guess. It was just like a
Hmm.
bunch of pub cord people that they roomed with during that event that they were like, oh, okay, they're good. And then after that event, that server just kind of died,
Hmm.
as tiering servers usually do. And then one day, I think Fluffy let people know that he was interested in tiering all the Noble Rose events back then. And then Caster, I believe, messaged him saying, asking if he could join the server. Oh, the server's FHP.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, back then, yeah. So if Caster could join FHP, he asked Fluffy that, and then after Caster joined, like a bunch of other people joined to support
Hmm.
Caster, I guess, and then somehow FHP like came back alive from the dead. And then I don't know, I don't really know what happened after that. It was just kind of like a bunch of things just happened, and then during Noble Rose 2, I think it was just Fluffy and Caster running at the time,
Hmm.
and then a bunch of other people that joined said they wanted to T10, and then podium T3 was empty, so I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll go for it if no one wants it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and then like as the event went on, we realized like we had this whole T10 wall, and
That's
we're like,
right.
oh, yeah, that was like, oh, okay. And then so basically I had the T3 like handed to me. Basically, it just I don't know. It was just like there. It was like my first time, or first time, second time. No, it was the third time. I forgot. Yeah, it was the third time cheering because I
Yeah.
also did a T10 for summer pastel palettes.
Hmm.
In between that, I don't know what just happened too.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know. It was like it just happens.
Yeah.
It's like you get baited by when once you're in and you're like, oh, okay, I'll go for it.
Now, the story is really interesting, Crow, because a lot of the story you just mentioned really actually overlapped quite well with Caster's story. I remember I
Really?
have I did have to do an episode with Caster, and he talked about how Noble Rose One was so competitive, and it just seemed like a really big wave of pubbers just really competing against it in Noble Rose One, and then he talked
Yeah.
about the wall in Noble Rose Two, so as well. So it's really interesting that the stories are aligned. So again, we're not in parallel universe or like different universes. This has all happened at once, and it's really interesting again, Crow, that you kind of told yourself, maybe I'm not really much of a tiering gorilla, but then you kind of casually got two T10 titles, and then somehow stumbled upon a T3. So it's pretty interesting that you're able to get those titles. And again, ultimately, just the way that it kind of sound from you, I imagine it was a lot of work, but like it definitely didn't seem like maybe as bad as maybe some people might have thought.
Yeah, I think with especially because you're playing with a lot of people in very efficient rooms, it's
Hmm.
way easier to achieve whatever goal you're trying to set or you set. So it's like you think it's something unachievable, but once you're playing with like people who have similar goals, I feel like it's like much easier to achieve them. Like not to say like you can't achieve them like in pub or stuff because it is very doable. It's just like easier to do it with people who have same goals, I
Yeah,
guess.
for
So
sure.
it's like Yeah. So for me, it's kind of dangerous because I'm easily baited.
Easily influenced, I guess.
I am. Yeah.
Well, again, that's one of the main advantages of a tiering server, where everyone
Yeah.
really is coming together and they all really have a very serious goal in mind, is to work together
Mhm.
and get their titles. So again, popcorn certainly is great, but again, some people's intentions may not be as as serious. But whereas a tiering server, everyone is definitely on their A game to make sure everyone gets the goals
Mhm.
that they want. So. Um, one thing I really want to mention, Crow, is that if you mention that how you are easily, I guess, influenced or impressionable. Maybe we have to look at Fluffy, because when I look at your titles, Fluffy basically shares like podium with you on all these events. So maybe we have a culprit here.
I think it's just like the people I'm around, because a lot of them do tier a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, they're tiering. Oh, maybe I should tier too.
So what
Yeah.
convinced you to tier ReZero then and end up getting
Oh
second
my god.
place there?
Sorry, Zero. Even like leading up to it, we were aware that there were like other servers for it, and it was like
Hmm.
probably gonna be really competitive, seeing it's how it's like Roselia plus a collab.
Hmm.
So we would meme about it a lot,
Hmm.
and then I guess it didn't become a meme. Uh, yeah. So before, I think I was just casual or just like a casual T100 or something, and then that became a T10, and then some people no, what happened after that? Oh yeah, I think I was like, oh maybe I can do T10, right?
Hmm.
I'll just take days off or something, and
Hmm.
then that became a T3, I think. Like, and then but someone on podium dropped the event for
Hmm.
yeah, and then so that kind of switched things around, and then I became T2, I guess. And then, yeah, after that, I just suffered for like a week.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it was just more like we talk about it, and then we like decide what positions we wanted, and then things happened, and then that changed again to like whatever tier we ended up with.
Hmm. Yeah. It was definitely a very eventful event, ReZero, in many ways than one. But um, you know, when doing the ReZero and knowing that you're competing with other servers, did you ever feel like it was going to be like a difficult challenge, or were you like pretty confident that with the people that you're working with, that you were able to sort of overcome your opponents and be able to achieve your goals?
Oh, I definitely thought it would be difficult. um,
Yeah.
because like the other events that I did here, it wasn't it wasn't very well. It was more like it was something that I felt like I could do. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go for podium or whatever. I was just happy with whatever T10 spot I got because it
Hmm.
was the same title, and I didn't think it was too competitive. I think like after a few days, but
Hmm.
like for Noble Rose 2, it was all FHP.
Hmm.
So I didn't really have to worry about that. And then the other two were like casual, like not casual, sorry. They were just like pub pubcord or pubbing, and with some casual rooms within the server. But for ReZero, knowing that there was another server that's been around for I guess like a year or so,
Hmm.
give or take, advertising for support and stuff, and here we are, just like a small group deciding to go for this event like a month or so before it started.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, okay, can we do this? I'm not sure,
Hmm.
but yeah, it was, and then knowing like the other server had like some prominent I guess players who
Hmm.
were more well known, so it was kind of like it was very like anxiety inducing, huh?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
It was really interesting that you guys were like so. Again, I think going into the event, I don't think it was a surprise that your server was definitely sort of the underdogs. I imagine the underdogs, but obviously at the end of the day, based on circumstances and a lot of things that went on, your server did go for a full podium sweep, if I recall
Yeah.
correctly. So
Yeah.
that is again job well done, a lot of hard work, and it was a challenge live.
Oh
That
my
challenge
god.
lives are not easy. Are not
Oh
easy.
my god. And like the challenge live songs, they were so horrible. I don't even know. Oh my god. I think like I spent the whole event listening to Stay Alive, and that was just that was cancer.
It got to the point where it became very difficult to stay alive
Oh my
in
god,
Stay
yes.
Alive.
Oh my god.
But like again, it was a job well done, Crow. The fact that you're able
Thank
to
you.
to push against that last bit and be able to get that title, and especially in the last, like, I imagine those last like couple of hours were incredibly nerve wracking. The fact that
Oh
you have to kind of
yes.
track a separate server and then like see how much challenge points they're burning and making sure that you are burning the challenge points and correctly as well. It's I imagine it was very stressful. So, um, but overall, I think I imagine that this was one of of course, your most proud, one of your most proudest achievements
Oh
in
yes.
Bandori.
Yes, definitely. Especially because we're literally playing until the event ended.
Mm-hmm.
And then um I for one was dying towards the end every single song.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
so yeah. And they heard Itchy being a total gorilla. Just like carrying me and Fluffy. Yeah, so it was like it was a really fun event, I guess.
Just a reminder that all special guests featured in the RePHIL studio can be found in the Unga Academy Discord server. Links in the description below. Join our great community who's very passionate about Bang Dream, tiering, and many other interests. And we have weekly community events as well as contests for people to complete through challenges. Of course, all Filler Nation members can access the podcast live when they're recording in this Discord server as well. So we hope to see you there.
It's funny because that T2, you got a T3, you then got a T2, and then you thought, that's not enough. We need to
Oh
fill
no.
that top three, right? So
I'm a fool.
just to kind of quickly get into it. So what
Huh?
sort of preempted you, and what sort of motivated you to see that, okay, this event, this warmth in my heart, what motivated you to say I want to go for T1 in this event?
Well, like you mentioned, I had a T3, a T2, and I was like, huh, if I get a T1, that's like a reverse podium, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like around the time I was actually like thinking this, they announced the event, This Warmth in My Heart, and I was like, oh, could it be? Is this a Yukina event? And then it turned out it was, and it was also a Yukina Rinko event, which
Mm-hmm.
was coincidentally also what ReZero was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, could this be it? And then, they also had Zeal of Proud, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just, I don't know, I guess I just really like everything about the event. The art is nice, the song is great, it's a Yukina event. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I will go for this one.
For
And
sure.
then, yeah, and then I set up the server and then just kind of disappeared for a couple months. Yeah.
How did that planning go? Like, again, like when the event was like first announced, like you went
Uh-huh.
ahead and made the server, and as the event approached, how did you make those preparations to prepare for the event?
To be totally honest, like after I set up the server and then I kind of just like it was just kind of there existing on my
Mm-hmm.
sidebar. It was just like I didn't really update or anything. I guess like the first 8 months, just because I'm really busy with work and stuff like our IRL stuff, so it's just there. But as the event got closer, I was like, oh, I should really set this up. Yeah, and then Shin, who graciously offered to mod for me, helped me set up bots and server stuff because I don't really know how Discord server settings work or stuff. This was like the very first server I created, so Shin helped me a lot with that. And then, of course, like in between making the server and the event, I would help out in other servers, other tiers in their events, you know, because I don't like advertising in a server where I didn't help out because I just feel really weird about it,
Yeah.
like personally. So I would try to help out as much as I can in between, and then, you know, put my server out there and hope someone joins. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I did, I guess, server wise setup.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a uncommon sentiment you had. You know, a lot of people, and they feel like they definitely want to, feel rewarded for being able to promote their server and try to gather support. It's sort of like an exchange, right? Equivalent exchange where if I
Yeah.
help you in this, I hope that you could help me in the future for this particular event. So. It's definitely a common sentiment by many tiers in the community for sure. And
Mhm.
it's really neat that again, maybe you didn't have exactly the knowledge of how to set things up, but again, a lot of people, especially who make good friends in the tiering community, are very knowledgeable and are very willing to help out and
Yeah.
show and be able to support you through the process of planning and building and such. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice people out there. Like, even if you don't really speak to them, they'll like, message you and give you a heads up and stuff like that. And it's very appreciated. At least for me, I really appreciate that.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So going into the event,
Mhm.
eventually later you saw that there was competition in the event.
Oh yeah.
Initially, it was going to be Manny that was going to be
Mhm.
competing for the T1, but then that sort of shifted gears, and then suddenly, as a almost relatively last minute, Nebi decided to join into the fray, and
Mhm.
it almost was going to be like a three-way fight, but it ended up being only a two-way fight between you
Oh,
and Nebi. But what when you first saw these competitors, what were your initial thoughts and thinking of the fact that you might be competing with these two for the T1 title?
so at first it was Manny who said they were gonna go for T1. And
Mm-hmm.
at the time I was like, oh no, another another competition.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having like flashbacks to like ReZero. I was like, oh my god, okay, if I could do that, maybe I can do this. Okay, it's fine. And then, later on, like you said, Nevi decided to join the fight, and I was like, oh my god, a three-way fight. I don't know if I can do this. Especially because Nevi, he's like a really good player. You always see him like posting about his APs and stuff like that. And he tiers JP as well. And I was like, oh my god, I won't be able to sleep. So I was kind of just like having like a mental like breakdown, being like, oh my god, I can't sleep. I'm gonna have to like compete against two other people. This is gonna But yeah, and then I was just like getting stressed out about it. And then eventually I just like, you know what? This is the only time I'm ever gonna do this. So might as well just do it. I already put in like time into this and effort, like playing with other people. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever happens, you know, I'll just take it so I don't regret anything. So yeah, so that's pretty much what went down with me
Yeah,
when I heard they were competing.
again, especially, Manny definitely is someone who's pretty notable in the community, especially when it comes to his song tiering. But
Oh
Nebi in
yes.
particular as well, very notable for already doing a lot of tiering, and he already has a T1 and was trying to add, another T1 to his collection. So it was really, I imagine it might have definitely caused quite a bit of, a little bit of stress, a little bit of, uncertainty on how you're going to tackle this. But, you already kind of mentioned as, oh, I'm not going to sleep. But, like, when going into the event, like when the event was just first going to start, what was your game plan? Like, what did you have like a game plan going in to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do to try and make sure that I could try and, at least take, maybe it's like to take a lead as much as possible, or like, what was a game plan going into this event to possibly sort of stave off the competition here?
Uh, to be honest, I didn't really have a game plan.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't really plan out like, oh, how many hours I was gonna do or anything like that. Um, but all I knew was like I kind of wanted to like go past whatever time I did for ReZero, like the first run.
Mhm.
I don't even think it was that much. I think it was around the 30s,
Mhm.
maybe. But other than that, I was just like, well, I'll just keep playing until I can't, because there comes a time when after a certain amount of hours, you just can't see the game anymore. So I was like, oh, that's like a good stopping point. So I was just waiting for that to happen, and then it didn't, and I just kept playing.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
See, like a lot of people when I get the advice about, competing T1s, it's basically first whoever sleeps first is generally going to be on the disadvantage side. So I don't know if you had that thought where, like, you just have to keep playing until maybe Nebi sleeps first, or it was just mostly concerned about yourself, like, okay, I just play into how much I go and then just kind of go from there.
Well, yeah, that's actually, yeah. I remember doing that for like ReZero,
Mm-hmm.
just because it was a really competitive event. And then but then I realized like if I worry a lot about the other people, I kind of like stress out about it more, and it takes
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of mental power, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, mental toll, big mental
Mental
toll,
toll,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
The toll on it, yeah. So I try not to worry too much about what was going on with the other server,
for
and I
sure.
try to just focus with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for that, I just did that, and then I would check every once in a while the track Lisa bot, the 2 minute tracking, not yeah, 2 minute tracking. Not like every other update, it's just like maybe like couple
Mm-hmm.
hours, 1 or 2 hours. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
eventually notice like, oh, he hasn't played in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you get like an adrenaline boost from that, seeing like, oh, I can get a lead.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, yeah.
It's honestly, this event was a very entertaining event to watch. Just seeing how close the two of you were, pretty much almost the
Yeah.
entire event. Again, there are times where Nebi started falling behind, but then Nebi started gaining slowly and slowly, and then was like slowly catching up, and then
Mhm.
things happened, and you take the lead again, and then that process just kept rinsing and repeating. Again, ultimately the storyline was pretty exciting. Again, it was a short event too, because
Yeah.
of the schedule and such, schedule changes and such. But yeah, it was quite entertaining to watch, and definitely basically went down to the wire.
Hmm.
Crow, definitely, I think one thing that really helped you in terms of being able to solidify that title was the insane run you did to in the beginning of the
Oh
event,
my god.
where again I heard from people that you didn't even know that happened, that you ended up
No.
beating the record for the longest sprint in event in ENdori history,
Yes.
of 66 hours, I believe, right, or closing to 67.
Yeah, yeah, around there. I'm not totally sure what the time is.
Yeah, so funny enough, like I was in an episode in the studio with Caster. Again, it's always Caster
Uh-huh.
that pops up.
Yeah, the
And
caster.
Caster mentioned, he looked at that record, right? He told me in
Uh-huh.
that episode where he saw that record and he was like, I want to beat that record. But because he was so focused on beating that record, the last couple of hours prior to that record, which was 62, and he got 63, those last few hours were dreadful. They were miserable. I think it definitely, like, the fact that he wanted to beat the record really, like, set him aback in ways. But he ended up beating it, and he urged people to never do that example. And that was, a month ago, the episode, a month and a half ago. Here we are, and we're talking about someone who already beat the record by quite a bit. So what were your thoughts of, like, realizing that, wow, you actually beat the record? It's like, whoa, I beat the record of the longest sprint. So how did that happen?
Okay. Honestly, I don't even know. There's like some hours in between where I just don't remember anything.
Oh man.
But I'm pretty sure it was just tapping the screen, so it's like I'm not stressed about it. But I agree with Caster though. Like, I don't think people should like do this to themselves, like at least willingly, like knowingly doing it. I think it's terrible. It is not a
Yeah.
good time.
So
Um,
yeah.
yeah. But I don't know. I kept playing, and then I wasn't aware that Caster did hold the record. I just wasn't sure what it was. I guess
Mm-hmm.
like in my head, I feel like 60 plus is just inhuman. That's just something like no one should do. So I think like in my head, I was like, oh, maybe the record's like around the 50s.
Yeah.
I can do that, right? I'm like 50 hours in. I can do that.
Mm.
And then uh I find out that it's actually like around the 60s, and I'm like, what? Didn't Caster like willingly go into this or like do that like out of his own free will for
Mm-hmm.
fun? I was like, who would do this? And like because I was like 50 hours in, I was just like my brain was fried. I had no idea what's going on. And like I was like totally out of it. And then I was like talking with someone, and then a few hours passed by, and then someone comes in and they're like, "Bro, you're like really close to beating the record." I'm like, "What? Am I? Should I just keep going?" Because I was gonna stop
Mm.
actually like a couple hours before, and then hearing that I was close to it, I was like, "Oh, maybe I can do it. If I can't get T1, maybe I can do this."
Little safety net achievement, right?
Yeah. It was more like if I were to get T1, then I could have like a different memory of this event, which would
Mm.
be breaking the record. So like, okay, I can do this. I'll just like crack open another energy drink.
Oh man.
And then yeah, and then that happened, and then people came in to like cheer me on, and then they came in to help fill in rooms and stuff. Yeah, and it was just like it was a very interesting event.
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely a very, I imagine, still very stressful, because even after that, 66-hour run, which is crazy. Again, the fact that you came into it not really expecting to do it, and then suddenly actually doing it, is honestly crazy enough, and you were able to pull that off. But even with that lead, you still have to keep your toes, because Nami just
Yeah.
never was that far behind.
Yeah.
So, I imagine, you really did not get a lot of rest during that event, eh?
Yeah. I think the first rest was like 3 hours, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one was like an hour.
Oh,
But it was actually like 30 minutes because I had to do something in between. But coming back from the first one was pretty fine, like 3 hours. I was used to that.
man. Uh-huh.
Just from like IRL, and also like ReZero was pretty much just 3-hour breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but that 30-minute one was just, that was terrible.
Oh man.
Yeah, that one was like,
I can imagine how brutal that is. Like, you almost went 3 full days without sleep, and then you just suddenly say, "Oh, I'm only gonna give myself 30 minutes rest and have to keep going." You know,
well, I think
yeah,
after the 66 hours, it was the 3 hours.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think, yeah. So that wasn't
That's
as
still
bad.
that's still not
Yeah.
enough. 3 hours.
Yeah.
Oh man, oh man. But yeah, hopefully again to our viewers, we
Mhm.
strongly suggest do not attempt this. Like, please
Yes.
do not, especially if, let's say, you don't have any care in real life,
Mhm.
outside, because you never know when something really bad happens, and if there's
Yeah.
no one around you, it's
Mhm.
it's it's not worth it. It's not worth your life
Yeah,
for
it's
for
not.
that. So
Yeah.
probably imagine you did had some IRL care as well,
Yes.
just to make
Yeah,
sure
I
that
did.
that was
Mhm.
that's good. That's good.
Yes.
Overall, your thoughts of the event and the fact, like, the experience you had, and I don't know if you had any regrets in the event, or overall, like, what did you think about the event?
It was a really exciting event, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. Just 'cause, like, no one really knew how it was gonna end out or turn out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as it was happening, it could go either way really until what happened. And then, yeah, it's like, no regrets, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Again, one thing I think really sort of helped you realize and finally give you some assurance is the fact that, again, you did eventually see Nebi get that unfortunate 24-hour ban on
Yeah.
the game. And again, for those who are unaware, if, let's say, you play very poorly on multi live, Bang Dream will start warning you, saying that you are being a bad player and misbehaving, and will start timing you out of the game. And if you do that for too long, it could stack all the way up to 24 hours. And unfortunately, it did happen to Nebi, which really basically costed the entire event. So,
Mhm.
but again, it shows that these events can be very competitive, and you have to persevere. And again, it really went down to the wire, and the fact that it had to end in such a way really showed that you were really into that competition. Nebi was really into that competition, and it really came down to who could tap the notes on the screen a little bit better, to the point where they didn't get kicked out by the game. So yeah, it was
Yeah, I think for that, I would really have to thank the people who roomed with me and
mhm,
the other tiers, because they brought in like healers, keep us alive. So, yeah, I really thank them for like, sacrificing their EP gain to help keep us alive, I
for
would say.
sure, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting meta where, like, definitely competition and competitive events where healers are definitely quite important in the process. I know Nebi's had a few healers as well, but I don't think he
Mhm.
was as serious on that, and that may have costed him. But again, because he was behind, he wanted to get as much EP as possible,
Yeah.
to make up for it, and he was gaining ground, but ultimately, wasn't able to pull
Yeah.
through. But again, big congrats to you, Crow, on that. And again, even for Nebi as well, it's still a very, very great achievement. Again, Nebi was a previous guest as well, so I know Nebi very well,
Mhm.
and I know both
Mhm.
of you did very well in this event. So big congrats to both of you on a very
Thank
exciting
you.
and thrilling event, for Warmth in This Heart.
Thank you.
So before we go to the Q&A section about from our Discord members, I just want to ask: do you have any plans on other future events? Are you, like, pretty much satisfied with your 1, 2, 3 title, or do you think you're gonna maybe go for more in the future?
I do have one more event planned. But after that, I'm not really sure.
Hmm.
At least like maybe for T10s,
Hmm.
but definitely no more podiums for me.
Okay. Okay.
Unless something happens.
Oh, you maybe
And
get whale fluenced.
I know. Yeah.
We'll put Fluffy on a leash there. We'll see.
If there's a Roselia event, you can find Fluffy.
Yeah. But yeah, again, if you do end up doing another event, all the best in your next event, if that does happen, and of course, anyone who's listening to the podcast, if you want to help support Crow in her future events, whenever that happens, feel free to join the Discord. All of our guests are there, and yeah, a lot of them are really able to, you can communicate with them and maybe see some servers as well that you'd be able to join and support many of our guests and other people in their tiering adventures. So Crow, this is about time to share some questions that some of our Discord members, speaking of the Discord, that would like to ask you. So I have a few questions here. I'm just going to ask them, I guess, in order of when they were asked. But I guess going into talking about tiering and such, one of the questions was, what was the hardest event you tiered and what was the proudest event you tiered? Now, again, it probably is one of the three we talked about today, but let maybe elaborate on that question.
I think the hardest was probably ReZero, just because it was like my first competitive event, and I didn't really know what to expect from that. So definitely that, and then proudest would probably Warmth. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's good. That's good. Again, some events for a lot of people, even like hardest is a very interesting sort of question that some people get, because a lot of the times when I talk with many people, that the T1s are not necessarily the most difficult. Sometimes the other events, like maybe even T10, because again, it's just something that maybe you weren't as prepared to do, or perhaps there's just more people aiming for that title, which makes it more competitive and more difficult. So again, proudest, I could definitely probably attest to that. It's definitely, and then hardest is like, it's really interesting that again, not everyone has their T1s or as their hardest, which is, I guess, quite interesting. Another event is, have you ever chose to tier an event that ended up being way more active than you anticipated?
So a lot of the events I tier are Roselia events.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like assume that it's gonna be very competitive, but I guess maybe reverse would be like, I thought it would be competitive, but it wasn't really. I would say, maybe NR3. I mean, I got voted, but that's just I I didn't play like the last like 12 hours basically.
Yeah.
Just because I was busy with work, but I don't know. I thought it was pretty okay for what I thought would be like pretty lit, seeing as how it was like a Yukina Sayo plus like the end of the trilogy. So yeah, I didn't think it was too bad.
I think I agree to that as well. And
Yeah.
Nova 3 was surprisingly a lot less competitive than I think many people expected. So
yeah. I guess also NR1, like I thought it was way more competitive than I thought it would be. Yeah, especially for T100 plus. Yeah. Just that. Yeah.
That's good. Speaking of more Bandori stuff, another question we have is, what is your favorite Bang Dream original song and why? I don't know if you've thought about this, but yeah.
Obviously, it's A to Z.
Our favorite.
I mean, that's definitely the song that everyone's heard the most, probably. Well, I really do like Ringing Bloom. really like piano, like in any song, and then like I really love Nonchan's voice, and then she's I think pretty like prominent in that song. So
For sure.
definitely Ringing Bloom is my favorite Rosalia song at the moment. And then, but I also really like, like the more serious Popipa songs
Mm-hmm.
where she has like, yeah, like Setsnai, Sandglass. Uh, I think Paspade has like a lot of good songs too.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
love their songs. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good. I'll give you a Phil seal of approval for your song choices. So, and last question here. We have one more question from our server members. But what is I don't know if you have an answer to this, but what is your favorite bird?
My favorite bird is obviously a crow.
Yeah, I wonder why.
No, I don't know. I don't really know birds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a bird just pooped on my car like a couple
Oh
hours ago.
no!
Yeah.
Oh no! That's I'm sorry. That was a terribly timed question then.
No, it's okay. I was like, oh, what a coincidence.
That's a terribly timed question, man. I'm sorry to hear that.
um, yeah, no, birds. Yeah, I like crows like in memes.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like are they the ones with the corn chip meme?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I
okay.
don't really have a good answer for
No worries on that. No worries on that. At least your answer was not Twitter.
that.
Well, I didn't want you to be witty in all your answers with like A2Z being the favorite original. Although I do think that A2Z is one of my favorite original songs, like unironically. So
If you're
don't
like
judge me.
listening to it outside of the game, it's pretty lit though.
It is. It's super lit. Just the
It's just
game
after you
itself,
play
yeah.
it.
It's a little tiring, but
Yeah.
yeah. But that's the life of tiering. And again, you never know. Again, in the future, we're probably hopefully getting newer meta songs to play, and
Mhm.
people might shift away from A to Z. But again, we'll see how things go when the future comes with ENdori tiering and such.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, crowe, it was a great pleasure having you today on the RePHIL Studio today. Thank you so much for taking part and being a special guest here. Is there any other things you want to say to the viewers, or any other things you want to shout out, or any places you want us to follow you in?
I just want to say once again thank you to everyone who helped me in Warmth. I really do like appreciate everything that they did for me. I'm not a
Mhm.
very social person, so I was kind of like worried that
Mhm.
you know not many people would be there. So I really want to thank everyone that was there, and to anyone who's wants to tier. You definitely can. If you can get into a server, it's really, really helpful. And a lot of people are very welcoming. You should just shoot your shot, DM them and ask them if you can join. Just, read the rules and stuff. And yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, crowe. Again, great to hear about your experiences and your stories. And if you want to, again, all of our special guests are in our Discord server as well. And of course, I'll have the links of all of our guests' Twitter accounts in the description as well. So you can certainly follow crowe there as well. But again, thank you all so much for listening to the RePHIL Studio. Our RePHIL has been complete. And we will hopefully see you in the next set on our next episode sometime next week. But until then, thank you all so much for listening. This is your host, SV Philhouse 4, signing out. Thank you, everyone. Take care,
Thank
and
you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.